Hello, friends. On the 4th of November, 1914, a British ship called Endurance crossed stormy, churning seas and was moving toward the world's most dangerous and most mysterious continent, Antarctica. 28 people were aboard this ship, and the man leading them was an explorer, a dreamer, Sir Ernest Shackleton. He had one goal, one burning desire: to do what no human being had ever done before: walk across the entire continent of Antarctica. You heard that right, friends. This was a time with no smartphones, no GPS, no modern technology of any kind. The temperatures on this continent dropped to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Blizzards, whiteouts, ice storms that can kill a man in minutes. And this man wanted to walk across it from one edge to the other, 2,900 kilometers on foot in 120 days. Their plan was to sail through the Weddell Sea and land on the Antarctic coast right here. But the Weddell Sea has a problem. It's surrounded by Antarctica on three sides. The ice can't escape. It builds up, it thickens. Year after year, decade after decade, the whalers at South Georgia Island warned Shackleton. They said, "Don't go. The conditions are too dangerous." But Shackleton wouldn't listen. December 5th, 1914. Endurance kept pushing forward, and their worst fears began coming true. The ice was heavier, much heavier than anyone expected. But Shackleton pressed on. January 18th, 1915. After navigating the ice edges for weeks, the ship stopped. Endurance was completely stuck in the ice. A crack appeared in the ice, 15 feet wide, just 50 meters away from the ship. That crack was their last chance at freedom. For 3 hours straight, they ran the engines at full power, every bolt shaking, every rope taut. The ship did not move a single inch. The crew got out onto the ice and tried to cut through it by hand. That didn't work either. Slowly, the ice sheet they were sitting on started drifting away from land, away from Vassal Bay, their planned landing point. They knew winter was coming. And in Antarctica, winter means 24 hours of darkness for months, not a single minute of sunlight. The ice kept tightening around the ship, day by day, week by week. Frank Hurley, their photographer, was on board, and he kept shooting photos. These photos would later show the world exactly what the ship was going through. September 30th, 1915. Cracks appeared on the hull, but the crew refused to give up hope. October 24th, 1915. 6:45 in the evening. Without warning, crack! A massive piece of ice slammed into the ship. It broke the stern post. Water began flooding in. For 3 days, the crew pumped water out of the ship nonstop. Minus 8.5 degrees Celsius. Numb hands, numb feet, but they kept going. It wasn't enough. The water was coming in faster than they could pump it out. Finally, Shackleton gave the order no captain ever wants to give. Abandon ship. A crew member, Tom McLeod, looked at the ship and then at the ice and said quietly, "None of us will ever get home." They had been stuck for more than 9 months. And then, on November 21st, a sound like an explosion. Shackleton turned around. The ship's rear had risen 20 feet into the air. And then, Endurance sank beneath the ice, forever. With the ship went Shackleton's dream of crossing Antarctica. But something far more precious was now at stake. Could they get home alive? No radio, no telephone, no way to contact the rest of the world. They were on a floating ice sheet in the middle of the Antarctic Ocean. No one knew they were alive. No rescue was coming. So Shackleton did what any great leader does in a crisis. He took stock of what he had. 3 small lifeboats, 1 sledge, and barely 1 month's worth of food. Shackleton made a decision that said everything about him. Each person could carry only 2 pounds of personal belongings. He personally left his gold coins in the snow and his Bible. The man left his Bible in the snow. Frank Hurley had 400 photographic negatives. He was allowed to keep 150. Those 150 photos are the reason you can see this story today. The nearest land was Paulet Island, about 550 kilometers across the frozen sea. Here's the irony, friends. Back in 1903, Shackleton himself had stocked emergency supplies on that very island, in case any future ship got stranded in Antarctica. 12 years later, he was the one who needed those supplies, so the crew loaded everything onto the sledges. Each boat alone weighed 1 ton. They pulled, they pushed, they strained. After 3 hours of backbreaking effort, they looked back. They had moved 1 mile. They named their camp Ocean Camp, and they waited. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. The ice sheet drifted east, further from land. Food was rationed strictly. 1 biscuit a day, diluted milk, a small tin of meat paste. They hunted penguins and seals for meat. But here's what I find most remarkable about Shackleton. He knew that food shortage was a physical problem, but despair was a far deadlier enemy. So he lied to his crew, not with cruelty, but with love. Don't worry, lads. There's plenty of food. We're going to be fine. He kept every single man busy. Every man had a job. Every man had a purpose, because he understood something most people never learn. Your body can survive incredible hardship, but if your mind breaks, you're already dead. March 23rd, 1916. Through the fog, mountains. They had floated past Paulet Island entirely. Ahead were Clarence Island and Elephant Island. Beyond those islands, nothing. Just open ocean. The Drake's Passage? The Drake's Passage, which Kiwi, the most dangerous stretch of water on planet Earth. 12-meter waves, more than 20,000 sailors have died there. 800 ships have sunk there. If they reached Drake's Passage on that tiny ice sheet, they were finished. So on the 15th of April, 1916, Shackleton ordered everyone into the boats. 497 days after leaving civilization for the last time, their feet touched solid land, Elephant Island. Having been through hell, this desolate, uninhabited lump of rock seemed like nothing short of heaven. But Elephant Island had no humans, no rescue supplies, no way to signal for help. Shackleton studied his map. 3 options: Cape Horn, 800 kilometers away; Falkland Islands, 880 kilometers; or South Georgia Island, 1,300 kilometers. The closer options required crossing Drake's Passage. Shackleton chose the longer, safer route, South Georgia Island. With a team of just 5 men, in 1 small lifeboat, he set out to cross the most dangerous ocean in the world. 22 crew members stayed behind on Elephant Island, waiting, not knowing if their captain was alive or dead. April 24th, 1916. Shackleton's 6-man team entered the Drake's Passage. They took turns, 4 hours rowing, 4 hours resting, but rest meant lying in a soaking wet boat, seasick, frostbitten, in complete darkness. To navigate, they had 1 sextant, and they needed sunlight to use it. In April, Antarctica's winter was beginning. Sunlight lasted only a few hours a day. Several times, waves crashed over the boat. It nearly sank. They had to lie down to eat, not enough space to sit upright in the boat. At one point, Shackleton's courage began to crack. He started shouting at a bird that was circling the boat. Even the strongest man knew has a limit. After 17 days at sea, they were 3 miles from South Georgia Island. 3 miles. And then the storm. Waves they couldn't control. Winds that spun the boat like a toy. They had no strength left to fight it. They put down their oars. The storm threw them around for hours. And then the clouds broke. 1 mile. The island was 1 mile away. With every last shred of strength they paddled. 10th May, 1916. After 17 days at sea, they reached South Georgia Island. But they'd landed on the wrong side of the island. The whaling station, their only hope, was 29 miles away. On the other side of a mountain range no human had ever crossed. Their boat was too damaged to sail around. They had to walk. Mountains of 10,000 feet, no tents, no sleeping bags, no guide, no map of the interior. No one had ever crossed this island on foot. Shackleton, Worsley, Crean, 3 men roped together, 3 a.m. They set off, up one mountain, hoping to find a path. Nothing. Back down, try another, nothing, back down again. Finally, after 36 straight hours of climbing through mountains they'd never seen, they heard it, a whistle from the whaling station below, the 7 a.m. workers' call. They started crying. May 20th, 1916. Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean walked into the Stromness whaling station. It was the first time in history that anyone had crossed South Georgia Island on foot. They had no idea, but they looked like they had come from another world. Beards down to their chests, skin blackened and cracked, clothes hanging in shreds, eyes that had seen things no one else had seen. The factory manager looked at them for a long moment, and then he recognized one of them. Shackleton, the man who had gone missing in Antarctica 2 years ago. Everyone here had mourned him as dead, and now he was standing here, alive. But Shackleton's real fear was the 22 men still waiting on Elephant Island, back on Elephant Island. Those men had built a shelter by flipping their 2 remaining boats upside down. Frank Wild led them. And every single morning, he woke them with the same words. Pack your bags, friends. The boss might come today. The boss didn't come. Days passed, weeks passed, months passed. Every morning, Frank climbed the hill to look for a ship. Every evening, he came back alone. Shackleton tried to reach them 3 times. 3 times, the ice turned him back. Finally, on August 30th, 1916, 128 days after leaving them, the ship broke through. And when Shackleton looked on shore, all 22 men were standing there, alive, waiting. Pack your bags, friends. The boss came today. Ernest Shackleton left Britain with 27 men. He came back with all 27 of them. Not one man died. 2 years, stranded on ice. A sinking ship, open ocean, uncharted mountains, starvation. And every single human being came home. In 2022, 106 years later, researchers found the wreck of Endurance at the bottom of the Weddell Sea, 10,000 feet below the surface. Because the Weddell Sea has no wood-eating parasites, the ship is in remarkably good condition. You can see it on screen. Still there, still bearing its name, Endurance. If you ever go to South Georgia Island, you'll find Shackleton's grave there. He returned to the island he loved. He never crossed Antarctica on foot. His original plan failed completely. But what he did instead was something far greater. He proved that with the right leadership, the right courage, and unbreakable teamwork, you can bring every single person home. And sometimes, that is the greatest achievement of all.